Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage.
Welcome to Lawyer Boss Life, the podcast where law firm owners learn to build profitable businesses and lead lives they love. I'm Chelsea Pagan, a law firm owner, entrepreneur, and toddler mom. I know it's possible to have an excellent income, work 40 hours a week or less, and still take time off because that's what I do.
And I'm LA law firm growth expert and founder of Law Firm Success Group. I've helped hundreds of attorneys scale their firms, gain freedom, and take back their time. Today, we're talking about business development and how to grow your firm without forcing you into those awkward, slightly sleazy and cheesy networking events or uncomfortable sales tactics that we all hate. Business development doesn't have to be draining or fake. In fact, it should be authentic to you. And when it's done right, it's natural, maybe it's comfortable, but what it is for sure is incredibly effective. So, Chelsea, I would love to get your take on this because I think we probably come in on different sides on this. Um, what do you think about business development, face-to-face networking type stuff?
Yeah, I go back and forth of on this, not in its effectiveness per se, but how it plays a role in my firm. So when we were first starting out, my business partner and I, we went to everything, any kind of bar event that wasn't just family law, any kind of local like downtown business association event. We sponsored a lot of different events, so our name was up there. And we had a lot of fun and we met a lot of people. We're still in contact with a lot of people at that time. But as we got busier, we grew families. We realized that we had more time for fun and we didn't have to be doing business all the time because we've set up our law firm to run that way. It took a back seat for us, and we just focused on a handful of relationships that were really adding value from a referral standpoint, from a business development standpoint. And we didn't have as much time for different networking events or things like that. And when I look back, that really created the foundation for the relationships we have now. So I highly recommend it. But I also think it's okay to have ebbs and flows of how involved and how much you're doing it. So it's just interesting. I think I would be interested to kind of see, a law firm, like side by side law firm results of people who consistently engage in those types of events and activities and people who kind of do it from time to time and how that impacts growth and development. I don't know that answer. So I think it's just figuring out what your needs are for the firm, what relationships you want to develop, and what you actually enjoy doing. Because if you don't enjoy going to these events, then forcing yourself to do it just as part of your business also necessarily isn't going to be the right fit, at least in my mind. But
I kind of disagree with that, actually.
I'm not surprised.
Well, this is where I meant, like, I think it's safe to say that you're pretty outgoing
Yeah.
and I'm pretty quiet and reserved. I'm very introverted. So for me, doing business development and networking is really hard. Like, going in and talking to people is definitely drains a lot of my energy. I
Yeah.
can't do it for a long time. That being said, I'm an excellent networker. So, and I built my business on it. So if I didn't actually go network, I mean, my business would have failed. So, and I find that business development is really uncomfortable for firm owners for a couple of reasons you mentioned. One, you don't have time. It
Mhm.
takes up a lot of time, and if you're a busy attorney with a growing firm, you're not going to have the time to do it. The second thing is it takes a lot to put in at the beginning to get those results at the end. I mean, you have those relationships now because you invested the time at the front end to build them, and there's so many people you met that those relationships, you know, didn't really build,
Yeah.
and I think that's challenging. There's this idea of, oh my gosh, I have to do this for like 2 years before I get a result. Are you kidding me? That's just way too long and way too painful. So that's the
Mhm.
second thing. And then, the third thing is if you're introverted, like many attorneys are, and like I am, it's really hard to go do business development. It's hard to bring the energy up, to keep it there, to do things that are, way outside of your comfort zone when really you would much rather just be in your office doing the work.
Yeah.
um, that being said, I think it's an incredibly powerful asset to a law firm. You don't need to do business development and networking to have a successful firm, but in many ways, your firm can grow faster and easier to a point if you do utilize some business development and networking. Um, so Chelsea, going back through, kind of your journey in business development and networking when you first started, you said that you were being strategic about what you did. Tell us more about what that meant to you. What was strategic about your approach?
Yeah, in our mind, we focused on a couple things. One, attending local business association events, because if you connect with other local businesses, then when they are talking to other people in the community, they say, "Oh, well, this law firm's just down the street and they're part of the business association. I know that I've met the partner, I've talked to them." Because business associations, especially small town, like I'm thinking about like downtown Campbell, downtown
Yeah.
Morgan Hill, they are very the purpose is to keep the downtown businesses thriving. That's why people are a part of it. And those are all non-legal. Sometimes they're boutiques that sell clothes or sell plants or tea. So totally unrelated to businesses that I necessarily encounter on a daily basis, but they're committed to the goal of keeping downtown Campbell businesses thriving. And they see a lot of people, foot traffic. They have friends who live locally. So it's a really wide range of contact. And so we really at the outset committed a lot to, downtown business associations. I actually miss going to those meetings because there's so many great people. So I'm going to put that
Yeah.
on my 2026 list. So that was the first piece in which we were like, this makes sense because of the goal of these associations. The second kind of area we focused on was attending networking events that weren't specifically legal. They were just other professionals. A lot of the times it was people involved in like realtors. It was just people in finance, other corporate worlds. So it wasn't always just other lawyers because you never know what kind of business relationship you need that you don't know you need, or a person who is in this very unique kind of corporate role, but is involved in nonprofits and has a really big network of just people. And if you can create a relationship with that person, regardless of the specific type of business each of you do, they know a lot of people, they talk to a lot of people. So it doesn't always have to be those strategic partnerships that we've talked about before, where there's a lot of overlap in clients. Sometimes it's just finding people who know a lot of people and talk to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I love that you were able to use that approach so well as you were building your practice.
Mm.
Um, we talk a lot about networking and relationships and what the difference is between the two. And I kind of feel like, once you've networked long enough, you start to build those relationships naturally.
Mhm.
And even if, like me, it's challenging to meet people and make friends, you will start to do that just by being out there.
Yeah.
Um, One thing you also mentioned that I really appreciated, kind of the energizer for me when I'm going out and doing these things, it's the exposure to new people, yes, but that's kind of scary for me. But the exposure to new ideas,
Mhm.
it's something I really dig. And going out and meeting with, people in the banking industry and realtors, other attorneys, other consultants, you get exposed to a lot of different ideas that you wouldn't have even known existed if you were just in your office. And so for those of you that have a hard time kind of getting out there and doing that because you don't really want to interact with others, think about this. You are going to get exposure to a lot of really cool ideas that are going to be incredibly energizing because they're going to give you lots of opportunities, not only for how you can build your firm, but how you can help your clients, how you can help your family and friends. I mean, these are just ideas that are going to come in and they are going to help in ways that you cannot anticipate
Mhm.
as you're sitting here, tuning into Chelsea and I today. So that for me was a real fuel that I used to get out there. Was I knew when I would go to a meeting, even if I talked to three people, one of them would give me a new idea or a new perspective or something really cool that was just fun to listen to and fun to learn more about.
Yeah, I like that too because talking to people in general is something I love to do. As a family law practitioner, it's such a huge part of the actual job is really just talking and managing your clients. But kind of going back to how to fit it into your schedule, a lot of these events will occur, like 5:36 and they go till like 8. Well, I go to bed at 8:30, LA. Like I get up very early. So the idea of going to something after work or even like before work sounds so draining to me, even though I really like to be out and about. So, obviously I love talking on our podcast. I've been on other podcasts. I try to put content out there on LinkedIn to invite conversations. And so sometimes also you can find other ways to interact and get that outlet in, even if it's just temporary. I'm not saying it's a replacement for being face to face and going to these events, but there's a way to kind of keep you active when you might take a lull in actually participating that can keep your name in front of people and bring it up from time to time, share ideas. So I also encourage people to think of other ways in which to have conversations with other professionals and put yourself out there. And that can also be a tool for people who don't necessarily love to be out and about, but want to start kind of connecting with others. Because if you're active on LinkedIn and you're sharing ideas, then maybe one person says, "Hey, I really like this. I'd love to meet you one on one for coffee." And that's kind of the step one to getting into a lot of these different environments. So just another suggestion that I was thinking of as you were talking and kind of sharing, that sometimes as a little bit more introverted, you've got to put yourself out there. There's ways to dip your toes in and also keep you active when maybe you just don't have the bandwidth in your life to go to a lot of these events.
Yeah, the other nice thing about being an attorney, and I'm curious if you do any of this, Chelsea, is people need attorneys all the time. And
Mhm.
so, pretty much no matter what you're doing, if you tell people that you're an attorney, there is a reasonable chance, more so than most other professions, that they will want to remember who you are and potentially even call you with a need for help. You may not be able to help them. You may have to refer them to somebody else, but everyone loves to know an attorney. Um, and so, you can do things that you just like to do or things that you have to do. So whether it's, supporting your kids' activities or skiing or golfing or, other things that you enjoy doing, other hobbies, when you do that with other people, letting them know that you're an attorney oftentimes can result in business opportunities. Chelsea, what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, I have had a couple areas in my life where just kind of accidentally it comes up, right? Like, "Oh, what do you do?" I think of people at the gym. I think of people at my daughter's preschool. I think about people on my daughter's soccer team or, guys that my husband works with and holiday events that we go to. It comes up in conversation. And what might not be surprising to some people, when you talk to me, I'll probably tell you 3 things about me that you didn't ask about because that's just kind of the way that I live my life. I think I do fun things, and if you are talking to me, somehow I'm gonna work those things in. I'm a runner, I do these different races, and also I'm an attorney who's really passionate about mediation and premarital planning. You don't have to be disingenuous about it. I mean, I really honestly love talking about the things that I enjoy. And so, I think that it's a missed opportunity to not share yourself. That's not advertising or doesn't come off as you trying to get clients. But if you're not talking about what you're doing, at least in some capacity, then sometimes I ask like, well, why do you do it? Right. Not that everyone has to love their job. I get that that's not always the case. But if you're not talking about it and sharing the part that you either wish you could do better or wish the system did better, it's just such a missed opportunity to have real conversations with people about what you're doing, especially as a lawyer.
Yeah, for sure. And so, one of the things you can think about is for business development, doing things that you enjoy and putting it out there,
Mhm.
right? Chelsea, like you talked about that you're an attorney, you don't have to wave around your card or anything like that, but just letting people know that you're an attorney is oftentimes a great way to start.
Yep.
Um, because again, we're looking at building long-term relationships. And so most of the people you meet in a business development setting are not going to become long-term relationship partners for you, but some of them will.
Mhm.
And the sooner you get started, the sooner you're going to have those relationship and referral partners
Yeah.
there at the end. And it takes, unfortunately, it takes consistent effort, because what you are doing is you are building relationships. One of the things that I've seen a lot of attorneys do when they're just trying to do this is they'll spend time trying to build relationships with everyone who's interested in building a relationship with them. And everyone likes to know attorneys for a lot of different reasons. And so they end up getting overwhelmed by requests for meetings,
Mhm.
requests for coffee, all this. And so one of the challenging things that we end up working with them on is how to be more selective
Mm.
about the relationships that they choose to invest their time in, because time is their most precious asset. They can't invest in everything, and they have to pick the top 10 to 15 relationships that they want to really spend time on. And here's the hard part: drop the rest. Connect with them on LinkedIn, put them on your newsletter, and then you're going to be too busy. And so, Chelsea, when you're thinking about relationships from a business perspective, what are some of the criteria you use to say, yeah, you know what? This is a relationship that I am not going to continue with.
I'm maybe you'll disagree, but if I'm being truly honest, I have to enjoy the person,
Yeah,
right?
I,
I
I
have to
totally agree.
I have to laugh. I have to think that they're like fun to talk with, that they add value to a conversation. Um, so that's the first thing is we have such little time. And if I'm going to go nurture a business relationship, it also has to be fun. Because I just don't, or fun but valuable. So I have some people where I wouldn't necessarily describe them as fun. It's not that they're boring, but they're so interesting the way that they share stuff, and I learn so much from listening to them. So it can be a more mellow experience, but I find what they share and the way that they share very interesting. So I'm using the word fun, but valuable really in some way, because I've had some people reach out like, oh, I would love to have coffee or do these types of things. And I've met them before and I'm just like, that feels like I'm doing something I don't want to do just to save the reputation of me not being rude for turning it down, or making sure that they think my reputation's good, or I don't know. It feels inauthentic. And I don't like that. It, for lack of a better term, feels icky, right? To do
Right.
something that you just really don't want to do. Doesn't mean that that person's not a great person, just doesn't add value to a conversation. So honestly, that's really the number one thing. Secondary is the business relationship, because if you're having a good time sharing ideas, that business relationship develops, on its own. So maybe I only have really one criteria.
But it's an important one.
Yeah.
Um, and so, the fact that they're interesting to you and you enjoy your time with them is so, so important.
Mhm.
Some of the other things that, we think about are, what is the likelihood that this person will be able to send you business, or you'll be able to
Mhm.
send them business?
Yeah.
Either way is fine. But if there's no likelihood of business exchange, then you're probably just going to be friends. And you should keep that in mind.
Mhm.
Um, so absolutely, liking the person is so, so important. And for those of you that are introverted, as you know, it's so much easier to have a conversation with someone who you actually enjoy spending time with, and you enjoy the conversations and you get a lot from them. And the way you can expand that circle of friends who also are business contacts is by meeting more people. So if you
Mhm.
want to get started, just talk to more people about being an attorney, maybe dip your toe in the water, go to some events that you're interested in, and just see what new ideas and new opportunities come your way. So, for help building a business development routine that feels natural and generates consistent referrals over time, book a strategy call on our website at lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. And if this episode sparked new ideas, please like, subscribe, and share it with a lawyer who might need it. We love hearing how you're building your lawyer boss life. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.